Silly podcast where we make fun of what we love. Our idea is Rock's Not Dead. We got about 200 episodes, interviews with J.K. Lee. Help me out here, Baco. Who have we interviewed? Jeff Tate. J.K. Downing.
Michael Sweets and Brian Keel.
Yep, and we also focus on newer acts too. So that just gives you an idea for the podcast end. In real life, I have the last 10 years, I've been working on with an e-commerce manager. So anything to do with having people come to your site, buy your stuff, in this case, buying your podcast, in other words, listening to your podcast. So that's what I'm here to talk to you about. All the other ones are about recording. This is Get Found. Let's see what I did. Here we go. Cobra hacks, something we do on the show sometimes. But this is how to get your podcast found, keep growing, and have fun. So, every day, I think it's that the statistic is that 1 out of every 10 humans has either a blog or a podcast. And I think there's 500,000. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay. There's like 500,000 podcasts out there already. So you may have the greatest rock podcast, the greatest podcast about something like that. It doesn't matter if nobody finds you. So these are some pretty basic steps, but they're things that people do wrong. There's a lot of things out there. So I deal with search engine optimization, things like that. So there's a lot of things that people tell you that are not true, okay? And also, Google has changed their algorithm the most drastic change happened earlier this year. So I'm gonna tell you what they're looking for too. So, okay, let's start with the basics. You have a show, and what you have to do to begin with is you have to have essentially what you want to call like an elevator pitch. So right there, Cobras and Fire, rock talk comedy show, done. Okay, so you at least have to have summary, because what the hell is Cobras and Fire? What a ridiculous name. Okay, so you got to at least add more to it. And also, every show has the word rock in it now. But you can use it as a descriptor. You don't have to pick another thing. Rock geek, all that kind of stuff. So, and then you want to do it, and then the summary. This is on the end of just the podcast itself. So, in Apple Podcasts or any of these things, the summary is very important. This doesn't have to do with just the episode. Doesn't have to do with the show. It has to do with all the episodes too, because this is searchable content. Just like you find video, just like you find articles, they can also find your particular episode. So we just put here the Cobras and Fire, just like I said, comedy rock talk show with absurd discussions about music, life, and a mix of classic artists and bands on the rise. Join us as we make fun of what we love. So that right there would be the elevator pitch. You can add more later, maybe some of the artists that you cover or whatever your subject or podcast is. But that's very important. This is what people get wrong. I'm going to show you this. First off, you need to, and I'll go over, if you have a podcast, you don't have to have a website. But I'll tell you what the only reason you should have a website would be. You don't just want to have a website that just repurposes your podcast. In other words, you use some kind of, oops, I was very angry at that. You use your feed and you just post it on your site. Nobody's going to use that. They're just going to go to the podcast apps once they know you. They're never going to go to your site again. So you need to have searchable content. Now, our show has been picked up by Blabbermouth and sites like that. Not for a normal show, which is basically just silliness and playing music. That's not newsworthy. Nor will, if you ever have those episodes, nobody will ever search for that. They're not going to say like, you know what? I wonder what this guy's top 10 Judas Priest albums are. That's not searchable content. But when you have an interview or a guest, you have to think about that the same thing as an article. So, in my case, on our site, cobrasandfire.com, for the interview eps, I optimize them. So as you see here, here's the episode. You don't want to be cute. Just John Crowley interview, Dead Daisies, Union, Motley Scream. Now that's the summary of the actual, that's the show title, which is different where people get confused on. By the way, is anybody familiar with WordPress? Or, no, sorry, okay. WordPress is the one you want to use if you do a site for your podcast too. And it's very user-friendly. We'll go into that in a second. This is how you optimize. Think about this. This is Google. When you search, doesn't matter, and this is extremely important too. Google is mobile first now. 60% of searches are done on mobile now. And I guarantee 80% or 90% are done with podcasts because that's silly time for you. You're not doing that on your desktop computer at work, or shouldn't be. So, yes, sir.
I do.
Good for you.
That's my preferred method.
Okay, fair enough. Well, you're the other percent. Okay, all right. So, but you've got to be the characters that Google has as of the last couple months. You want to think like Twitter, keeping it tight. So right there, this is not the article, the name of the podcast, because that's a weird thing. Like episode 181, that's not searchable. So John Corabi interview 2019 talks possible union reunion. Boom! That's somewhat, if you are into Corabi, that's something that's possibly newsworthy. Now, if you see here, second thing, and by the way, I'll have this on the website as a download later. Right there. If you see, that's the same thing as the top. So you're saying this is what the main thing about it is, and then we're also summarizing in the meta description, which is what shows up in Google. And you want to be very cognizant of only having basically 2 lines of text. Well, 3 lines, but it's not including that first little blurb in bold. So when you search on Google, this is exactly how it will show up. Okay. Now, you probably heard of keywords. Maybe you've heard of this, keywords, things like that, keyword stuffing, trying to do that. No. This is what Google looks for. One of the things is content. And what I mean by content is, if you've ever looked for a recipe, it's super annoying when you get to a blog because there's all this like, this is my favorite recipe and blah, 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 blah. And it goes on and just give me the ingredients and like that. But it's way down on there because Google will not rank that unless it's giving information. Like here's more, Google is looking for the best answer to the question. So at least 300 words needs to be the summary of your article. You don't have to do it in your podcast feed as much, but if you're doing something that's news, oh, come on. When did that go down? Just now?
Just yeah.
Okay. Okay. So, right there. There's the meta description down there. Tight, looks like. That's how this will show up on Google. So, you can't trick. The main thing is that you can't trick Google. Tags. You ever heard of tags? Useless. Stupid. They don't do anything for search. Now, it's a way to organize your content on your site. But people, when they do this sometimes, they just put like every single band that they're talking about. They don't care. It doesn't matter. So, all right. So this is there's a plugin called Yoast, Y-O-A-S-T, that you can put on your WordPress site. And what that will do is it'll actually give a checklist of stuff you've done right. When you've done your article, when you've done your post the right way, it'll give you all green. And this, for example, if you were to search for this. That interview shows up, I think, on the bottom of page 1 on Google right now, or just our silly Corabi interview, because all those steps were taken. That's not everything, so it's called ACT. This is really important, you gotta remember this. So accountability, content, and technology. I just covered the content portion of this. Accountability means if you say, you're the greatest podcast on XYZ, that doesn't matter. But if you have relevant sites, like Blabbermouth or things like that are linking to you, not Joe's blog in Minnesota, but a real site, news site that is linking to you, that starts creating validity and accountability for your website. So how do you do that? I'll go into that in a second. This part is key also, technology. You could have the greatest content in the world. If your site is not SSL, if you don't have an SSL certificate, which if you don't know what that is, when you go to a site, it'll say HTTPS, not HTTP. Google shames, you've probably seen this sometimes, you click on it and says this site might be dangerous. And it's really not dangerous, it's just content. But that's the stuff that people use in e-commerce when they check out. But now Google wants across the board, I don't care if you have a blog on whatever it is, they want it SSL. You have to have a certificate. And I'll go into how you get that in a second with your hosting provider. Other thing is, your site has to run fast. You've got to make sure you're not putting 1 billion, 5,000 pixel wide images on your site because, again, Google is mobile friendly, mobile first, okay? So they want a good user experience. So you have to make sure you have a good hosting provider and that it's secure, things like that. So, optimizing website content. again, you don't need a website unless you actually have that searchable content. We already covered that. Otherwise, I think you're just going to be spinning your wheels. You could be doing it in different ways. So if you have interviews, that's one way to do it. When you're looking for a theme, I have some recommendations I can give you afterwards too. But you want to have a podcast-friendly theme. There's a lot of them out there, and they're like $70 or $100 to download, and I can give you some tips on that too. These are ones that you don't have to embed the podcast every time. You hit a button and it imports your feed automatically.
You mean a WordPress theme? Or?
Yes, WordPress theme. So it's much easier. So you just have to refresh it every time you have a new episode and all your content is there, exactly as you had. In other words, whatever your show description is on your feed, your podcast, that will be, bam, it turns into a post. And then you can edit it from there, just like I showed you for that John Corabi one. But at least you have all your stuff there, your images, your show art. That's what's really nice about it. I already covered this, 300 plus words, key phrase, so we covered that. All right, technology. We did cover that. I'm ahead of myself. All right, so user experience. Here it is. So you can check out, if you just type in Google page speed too, you'll find this. But if you check out your site, you put your URL in, it'll tell you everything that's wrong with your website and how to fix it. And it's an eye-opener a lot of times, but you need to have a score of 90 or more for Google to say, this is good. Because think about it, when you go to a site and you can wait more than like 3 or 4 seconds these days, you're like, what? You know what I mean? People leave. Good host. Everybody knows GoDaddy. I used to use them. They're much more expensive. Just my personal experience is they've jacked stuff up plenty of times. I really recommend Bluehost. That's what we use, and I've moved over more professional sites to it too. It's a lot more affordable. You can actually host many websites on your same account. And you call them, they call you back. And I just got it, there it is, the SSL, HTTP. You want to have that 100%. Now, I'll show you this. And this isn't to throw Decibel Geek under the bus, but right there, on their site, they've never been HTTP. Okay, they don't have an SSL certificate. So immediately it says, whoa, we're shaming you. Google doesn't like that. And it's hard to find their articles, quite honestly, when you search organically. And this is one of the reasons. It's also needs to be faster. Love Decibel Geek. I'm just letting you know there's a few factors in that shows that's what you have to have. And there an example would be ours, right there. That's what it would say. You want to look for, you always want to see this little lock, this padlock. That's when you know it's the right thing. Okay, we covered accountability. And yeah, so here's an example of how you would want to have your site, where you want to put your most relevant searchable content first. So on our first page, we just do little summaries, and each one of these articles is optimized for people we've interviewed. And also, the other point of having a website versus just a podcast is it gives you credibility. If you're going to have a show, you're going to be interviewing people, and you send out a request and you have your link, you want your site to look good, like all these things that I'm talking about, because then they see like, okay, they've interviewed these 6 people, their articles actually do get published out there. These guys are legit. I might actually call them back. So that helps you there too. But definitely summarize, put your best content up on the first page. This is when we started getting published on Blabbermouth, I'm going to give credit to my co-host over here, Baco, in the back here. Oh, and Toomey. And I'll tell you that, and if you want to add into this, I call it the art of the non-press release. Everybody gets assaulted with these flowery press releases that go on about this band is the greatest everything, here's the whole history, blah, 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 blah. They're coming out with a new album, you're like, oh my God. And then the headline will also be something that's not, I call it clickable. Not, it doesn't entice me to look at it to begin with. So all we do is send it out with a quote for the headline, what we thought was the most important thing that our guest said. There's little quotes back there. And then we just do a quick quote, 1 or 2 quotes, and the marker in the podcast where it is. That's it. Then people just started. That's all it was, because it was different. Oh, and we don't spam. In other words, use a list. This is not to everybody. You address it to the person. You find the contact at their respective sites, and you just email them directly, make it personal. And then once you know the ones that are picking you up, that's who you send it to them first, because then they can actually run with it first. And then, so they feel special. That's basically the summary on that. Okay, so besides the search, they have the sickness out there called pod fading, okay? And that is people that start podcasts up, they realize it's way too much work, and then they just die after X amount of episodes. So many reasons for that is you don't know your own expectations. So you need to have, we come out like New Music Tuesday every Tuesday. That's our set date that we come out on every week. Now I've said we might be coming out every 2 weeks maybe in the future, because it just gets too much sometimes. But what you want to do is not have I don't feel that you should have your podcast come out whenever. I think people, just like watching a TV show or anything like that, they can't wait for Tuesday to hear that ridiculous show again, or that show I like so much. So it doesn't matter if it's once a month, every 3 weeks, have a set day. Engage with other podcasts. This whole Expo is amazing to me because it's not about competition. It's all about collaboration. You will have more fans and more listeners the more podcasts that you befriend and that do turn into your actual friends. And so you want to think that way too. That can be also not just your page, but with Facebook. I'm sure we know this, that you only get random things in your feed these days. So about a year and a half ago, we created a Cobras on Fire group, and then it totally changed the engagement because you can have your notifications where you get an update every single time. And I think people feel more comfortable posting silly stuff when it's in a private group too. So that is one thing I'd recommend too. Also, some type of loyalty and interactive experience. What do we have?
The Buy Us a Beer program.
Yeah, Buy Us a Beer. We like that very much. We have people contribute, then we do a review of the beer in the beginning, and it helps cover our hosting costs. But something to have that Geeks of the Week is what Decibel Geek has, some kind of recognition to actually engage your audience. And then, shall not. You're going to be in the beginning wanting to share your podcast. Oh my God, this thing I've created is amazing. I need to tell everybody. So you'll just start sending links on your Facebook feed or anything like that, telling the world. Guess what? I guarantee many of your friends don't rock or not into the same stuff that you're into. The more stuff that you keep sending out there is just when people are going to be ignoring it. Just share, go after the people that you actually think are going to value it. Because people, it's just like it's kind of like the whole pyramid scheme thing after a while. Hey, check this out, and we come. It's just not a good thing. Causing drama with listeners. Your listeners are your friends. They're actually listening to your show. If they disagree with you, be nice about it, have fun with it. Is anything that we're doing here, or at least this group, important? No, it's all wastes of time. This is a huge waste of time. You're wasting your time right now with me, okay? If you didn't know that already. But yeah, so just have fun with your listeners. Do not cause drama. Or with other podcasts. Take too long to fulfill promises. Let's say we do the Buy Us a Beer thing, and I just don't feel like getting that beer. Somebody waits 3 or 4 months. There's sometimes when people donate to co-host a show or do something special, just follow up on your promises or give expectations. You know what, we're behind. It's going to take 3 months for me to get there, because if I'm donating $50 or $100, I'm maybe like, what's going on? So definitely, and respect that. People you don't have to do any of these things, so it's amazing that they actually do. That means how much that they actually like your show. And don't copy themes or anything like that from other shows without giving credit. There's definitely some non-original stuff we do in our show, but we at least give a tip of the hat to the other shows too that we're doing. And don't interview to interview. Just to interview somebody you don't know much about. Maybe we should start doing that. Just kidding. And then also, shall not improperly count coins. So if you can't count the number of sides correctly, and you come up with 3, that is not a good thing either. Now, some of you didn't get that joke, obviously, but I think some people in this audience understood that. Yes. But that's pretty much it. I've got my cards, and I built. As far as professional, I've built a website that sells baby monitors. I've built a company that did a wedding business that was sold. I now work for a company that makes adjustable standing desks. So it doesn't really matter what the product is. all those things, people were able to find the product, and they grew. So the main thing is just have fun with this. It's going to be on the site. I haven't uploaded it yet, but it'll just be under this link if you want to download the presentation. And I'm for hire, so that's pretty much it. So leave my card. Any questions, or you just want to talk to me afterwards? I'm good to go.
If someone does your buy a beer program and you don't like the beer, are you able to just get whatever beer you want?
No, you're supposed to. It depends if that beer is in that town, and then there would
You
be,
can't find it.
Yeah.
and there would be substitutes.
Look past the Exxon nearby, or
Oh, boy.
Oh, I look. Yes. Always fulfill your promises. That's it. Thank you.